All right, everybody. Jalen Hurts versus Trevor Lawrence. The 2016 Eagles versus the 2022 Jaguars. The Phillies. Whatever with the Phillies. Guys, come along on this fantastic journey. Trending the AM starts in 30 seconds.
Holding gets around in front. And Philadelphia has it.
We got Phil frozen.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Trending in the AM. This is Jason Voorhees. My man Phil is somewhat frozen, and we got Parcero in the house today. What's going on, guys? What's up?
What's happening, Jason? This is the way we start off Trending in the AM with me.
This is what
frozen Phil.
I don't know what's going on, but you know what?
I'm gonna let Phil take care of it.
It's always sunny in Philly.
There we go.
You guys hear me? My laptop froze up. It's a good thing I got a backup laptop always on hand.
My man, always prepared. He's more prepared than the Phillies.
Prepared here. Yo, what's up, everybody? How you doing today? Sorry for that little stall right there. Now I'm all thrown off, guys. We got Jason Voorhees. We got Parcero. Can you guys hear me okay?
You're perfect. He's crystal clear, man.
All right. So, as I said in the intro, welcome along on this fantastic journey, people. That is my shout out to my man Coolio, who passed away last night. You young bucks, Parcero, Scotty, Dylan, you guys don't know Coolio like I do. Mid-90s growing up, I mean, there wasn't a day when you did not hear a Coolio song on the radio or on MTV.
Did he make the Keenan and Kel theme song?
He did, actually.
That's how I remember him.
That is how you remember him. That's awesome. The guy was one of the greatest, and he does not get the respect that he deserves for what he did. You know, obviously, Scotty made the joke that he's a one-hit wonder. Let's not go that far. He had quite a few good hits. So the guy was really talented there. So, rest in peace to the man Coolio right there. Love that guy right there.
Dude, we're losing a lot of artists this year.
It is. I mean, Jason, you know that with the sports and metal, it seems like every time you guys do sports and metal, you're talking about another artist that has passed away.
Pretty much every show this year. Yeah, that's happened. Yeah. It's pretty insane. Like I guess, unfortunately, that's the sign of life. Like as we get older, the older you get, the more people pass away. It's just how it works. And I just want to say prayers and thoughts to all those in Florida right now, because that is, I saw some of the videos and that's insane. And I just, I wish all my brothers and sisters down there, everybody, please be safe.
Yeah, man. It's great you mentioned that, Jason, because I feel like a lot of the times, because we live up here in the Northeast of America, we don't always get hit with those hurricanes, but it's a real thing down there, and you really have to plan for it. And I mean, sometimes you just can't plan for it because you don't know exactly how bad it's going to be. But I'm with you, man. Thoughts and prayers go out to all our family down there in our Florida, that South region.
Absolutely. So, all right, so I'm trying to reboot my good computer here, but at the same time, let's talk Eagles, Jaguars.
Let's do
it. We're gonna talk Phillies today, but we want to talk Eagles, Jaguars to start. So last night I was on another podcast doing a fantasy football talk, and we were talking about the Eagles Jaguars game, and it got me thinking, because the person I was debating, was trying to stand up for the Jaguars and how great they've looked so far, guys. Obviously, Doug Peterson took over a team that was falling apart basically last year. Jason, we were talking off the air. You can kind of say that this is still kind of Trevor Lawrence's rookie year to an extent. Just like we kind of thought of last year was still kind of Jalen Hurts' rookie year. The 2016 Eagles, Doug Peterson takes over a really bad Eagles team, young quarterback. They come out red hot 3-0. They level out after a little while. but lot of similarities in that 16 Eagles team and this 2022 Jaguars team. A lot of mid-level players like the Christian Kirks of the world. Compare him and Zay Jones to Nelson Aguilar and the guys we had receiving.
Where's DGB?
that was a great one right there, right? Who did we trade for? Did we trade like a lineman for him? And I was pumped for getting him.
Dude, same, man. Because you were pumped about the hype because of what the kid's track record before coming into the league, and you were just like, all right, well, this is it. He'll figure it out here. That was just a funny year, man.
Did not happen.
No.
So when you see those similarities, and then obviously the Eagles started 3-0 in 2017 or 16, and then kind of leveled off. The Jaguars have come out red hot. They're 2-1. Is this the week that we finally see, Jason, the Jaguars level out and come back to reality a little bit? Is 2-1 at this point? I mean, everyone's hyped that they beat the Chargers last week, but let's be honest, even though we played, it was without Justin Herbert last week, because he was not anywhere near remotely healthy. So while they're riding high, is this the week that they level out a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I told you I have much respect and love to Doug Peterson. I mean, I love the guy. He's just a great person. Mm-hmm. And, obviously I will always appreciate what he brought to the Eagles. But if I'm looking at these two rosters, yes, I think the Jaguars are an upstart team. They're a team that does have a lot of young talent. They have, some veterans sprinkled in there. And they're playing well for Doug Peterson. But as much as I would think that a homecoming would have that, homecoming effect for Doug Peterson and the Jaguars, I think the Eagles are just riding so high right now, and I don't see it stopping. I think Jalen Hurts is just continuing to just show me things that I never envisioned with the guy every game. And what I'm seeing from this team overall is, a quiet confidence. Like they're, it's not like this team where it's like they're just cocky and they're coming out, and it's almost like they know that they're better than we were thinking. It's crazy. I'm kind of getting that vibe from this Eagles team. And I think that even though it's going to be, I'm not going to say it's a blowout, but I think the Eagles keep their foot on the gas, and I think it's definitely a win. I don't think that
Parcero, jump in there.
Yeah, no, Phil, I think what you said is something that I talked about this week. I completely agree with you. Like, Doug is all about culture, right? The reason why he got hired in 2016 was because we needed someone with emotional intelligence, if we all remember all of those days. So Doug is building Jacksonville similar to what he did in Philadelphia. The first year, you're not really reading into the wins and losses. You're building the culture. You're learning the lessons, and that's what's going on in year one here in Jacksonville. Although they are 2-1, which that was a good win against San Diego, LA. Showing my age.
By the way, I'm not trying to take anything away from their win last week by saying
no, not at all.
Hurt, but you got to take that into account when you're evaluating it.
And that's a good confidence booster for a young team like Jacksonville as well. But I do think that the one thing, and we've seen it throughout the first 3 weeks of the Eagles, this Eagles team is mentally tough. Everyone is calling them an elite squad, and everyone's thinking Super Bowl, but these guys are level-headed, and they always keep the same mentality day in and practice in, game out, game in, game out. It's all about hard work. It's all about remembering where they're at, and that's why I don't feel like a letdown's going to happen here. I think for Jacksonville, it's going to be a great test because they're going to battle it out against a mentally tough team, and they're going to realize that is what it takes to succeed in this league.
I agree. So you look at it, you look at these two teams at where they are in their development. I mean, no one really thought the Eagles would have jumped this quickly with Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. But you're looking at it, you got Jalen Hurts and all the intangibles. He's obviously playing better, obviously better than he was last year. You got Trevor Lawrence, who was the first pick in the draft 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And everyone's saying one of the best quarterback prospects of all time, like in that Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning-esque thing. So we'll start with you, Percy, then we'll go to you, Jason. If you had a pick, based off of what you've seen so far, Trevor Lawrence or Jalen Hurts to build your franchise around, are you taking the natural football talent of Trevor Lawrence, which we haven't seen anything else out of him other than that, Or are you taking Jalen Hurts, the work ethic, the improvements, the intangibles, which I talk about as my just as important, if not more important, in a quarterback? Who are you taking to build your team around?
This is such a fantastic question. This is why this show is amazing. This is why I feel you are a great host, because this is a question that like we won't find out the answer for like 5 years down the line,
Absolutely.
right? So I would have to go with this, the unbiased. I'm gonna have to go unbiased here. I'm gonna go with Trevor Lawrence simply because I keep in mind, right, the absolute circus that Trevor Lawrence was put into last year with that clown Urban Meyer. And I think to myself, like, if he was put in a situation that, yeah, maybe, like, remember the Colts when they got Andrew Luck, if you remember that time period, that team was bad because of the injuries they had the prior year, but they weren't a terrible year going into Andrew Luck's rookie year. If Trevor Lawrence would have went into a situation like that, he would have been completely fine. I think that Trevor Lawrence still has the intangibles. I think that Trevor Lawrence still has the mindset to play in this league as well. Obviously, Jalen, coming out of college, the one thing that we all, kind of rallied around was the intangibles, being that leader, being that vocal guy, the arm strength and all that other quarterback stuff that we keep in mind here in the NFL, that we always said maybe that might come down the line. So if I have to pick between the two, I'm going to have to go with Trevor Lawrence simply because just the situation Trevor was put into.
Yeah. Jason, where are you at with this?
Dude, it's such a tough one, but
I know.
and I don't want to come off as the homer, but I'm going Jalen Hurts. And I think you know me. I've been on the Jalen Hurts train longer than a lot of people. Like, I was always a firm believer in Hurts, and I always kind of thought that all those narratives about him were wrong. Now, I'm not sitting here saying I thought he was going to be this good. Like, what I'm seeing from Jalen Hurts now is like almost like the evolution, like where a guy comes out and like year one, he's okay, but we see a lot of like deficiencies. Then year two comes around and you kind of see, well, he definitely put in the work, but we're still a little skeptical. And, now it's year three and it's like, okay, we're going to like let the training wheels off and just let them loose. And that's what I'm seeing right now. And I still think there's more of a ceiling for Hurts. And that's what's crazy about it. Mm-hmm. I think when I look at Trevor Lawrence, obviously he was a bona fide elite talent. He was the number one pick in the draft for a reason. But we've seen so many quarterbacks down the line. I mean, I remember Sam Bradford was that guy at one time.
Oh, boy.
And,
Sammy Sleeves.
That guy made so much money. The last quarterback taken number one overall to get that big contract, man. They changed the rules of football because of Sam Bradford.
Yeah, and listen, I know we're laughing, and I'm not comparing. I'm not saying that Trevor Lawrence is going to become Sam Bradford, but all I'm saying is that I don't go off where the guy was drafted, because Pat Mahomes was drafted the third quarterback that year, and he was the best quarterback of that class. Yeah, so absolutely. I don't go by that. I go by the eye test, and also you have to go by the situation. You have to look at the team around them. And listen, although Jaguars have done a nice job surrounding Trevor Lawrence with some pieces, I'm taking A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith any day of the week over the wide receivers that the Jaguars have. I think Miles Sanders, although James Robinson's a nice running back, I still think Miles Sanders, when he's at his best, is a better running back. I look at the Eagles' defense is definitely – I mean, I know we complain about Jonathan Gannon, but what I saw now, was it a case of the Redskins just having a bad offensive line or the Eagles' defense being that good? I guess we could probably say maybe it's in the middle, but the Eagles' defense has come, full force. So I think the Eagles have better pieces around Hurts. So I'm going with Hurts.
Well, but see, and I know you want to say something, Persera, but let me just counter Jason for 1 second here. If you take Trevor Lawrence and put him on this Eagles team with Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, the best offensive line in football, are the Eagles even better than they are? That's the question you have to ask yourself then, because Trevor Lawrence is the better quarterback, probably, but maybe not overall the big picture. So that's kind of the counter to that. I don't know if they'd be that much better with Trevor Lawrence, but They might be. I don't know. Parciero, what were you going to say there, buddy?
No, I think that a lot of the times we look at just individuals in the sport that is all about the team. Like I remember for years, people kept clowning Matt Stafford, and they're like, saying he can't win any game, he can't get into the playoffs, he can't win playoff games. Then what happens in his first year of LA? He's surrounded by a really good team, and he wins the Super Bowl. So to me, it's not an individual sport. I think we all have to remember that all the time. I think Jason brought up the really good points there about how we've been able to build a team around Jalen Hurts. That's really all it takes. Andrew Luck could probably still be in this league if Indianapolis would have built together an offensive line that would have kept them upright. But you never know.
Absolutely
But you got to build a team around them, and that's what makes them successful.
Yeah. So, and I think you guys both made great points on both sides. I kind of like 1-1. I've got to pick Hurts or Lawrence to kind of settle the debate. But it's like, I can't, because I keep thinking back to, if you put Trevor Lawrence on this team, are they any better? Maybe a little bit, maybe not. If you put Jalen Hurts on that Jaguars team, are they 2-1? Without Devontae Smith, without, because again, and I got hit pretty hard last night when I was on that fantasy football show. I said that the Jaguars have a bunch of number 2 and number 3 wide receivers.
Yes.
And nobody better. They don't have an elite guy. But you can win some in the NFL with average guys. I mean, hell, we made the playoffs last year with Jalen Reagor as our number 2 wide receiver. So, I mean, you can win in the NFL with it. Does Hurts make the Jaguars better? I don't know. So, you guys talking about the team mattering around them. Look, I'm a homer. I'm biased. I'm always going to take Jalen Hurts over anybody else because he's my guy.
It's my quarterback.
He is my quarterback, man. Parciero, you don't know this. I've been talking about Jalen Hurts since the day he got benched in Alabama. That
long?
Lost his job, because I hate when athletes lose their starting job because of an injury. Do you think about it? He was the starter. Tua was on the bench. He got hurt. Tua came in, played really well. Jalen Hurts got healthy, and they never went back. And that kind of I hate that thing, because it wasn't like Jalen Hurts stunk and got benched.
Right.
Jalen Hurts was playing great football in Alabama, and he lost his job because of an injury. So ever since then, that's put the chip on his shoulder, and ever since then, that's kind of given me a little extra motivation to cheer for Jalen Hurts. So I always love that aspect of him.
Isn't it funny that both Tua and Jalen are dominating the sports talk these days in the NFL nationwide? It's crazy.
Hey, all right. We say that, they're going to be linked together forever. We made the conversation. Would you take Hurts or Lawrence going forward? Would you take Hurts or Tua going forward, guys?
I'm going Hurts.
I'm going Hurts.
Absolutely.
We talk about, and I'm going to tell you the one thing that I think separates Tua and Hurts. I think Hurts and Tua have similar talent, but what makes Hurts that much better, in my opinion, is his leadership. I heard the interview. Did you hear Michael Irvin? Michael Irvin had a segment where he went off. Apparently, he had heard a quote that Jalen Hurts made in the locker room, and it set Michael Irvin off. And when you see a guy of Michael Irvin's stature get like that, that tells me that what Jalen Hurts said is like a needle-moving comment. And all it was a basic cliche quote, but like what it meant as far as like what it set off to the team is like, it just shows you the difference between him and just a normal guy. And that quote was, he said, he was speaking to his playmakers. He said, I need my playmakers not to measure the temperature. We need to be the thermometer. That was how he said it. And it was like, dude, Michael Irvin went off. He was like, if Troy Aikman said that, I would have won 6 Super Bowls. Like, it was like insane. Just like hearing like how a little quote that you think is like kind of dumb, but it like has that much meaning because it comes from a guy that like, he just, I don't know. He enthuses confidence in all his players. Like it's that and that to me is the difference between him and Tua. I think Tua is very talented, but I think Jalen Hurts has the opportunity to be one of the best leaders, in the game.
Every time I hear Jalen speak, I just want to run through a damn wall. Like literally.
Did you guys catch the quotes from Shane Steichen yesterday?
Nah. What did he say?
So I don't know which reporter reported. He was talking off, like unofficially, with Shane Steichen after all the press conferences and practices. And Shane Steichen was talking about Jalen Hurts yesterday to him. and he was like, yo, it was 8 o'clock. I was walking through the offices, getting ready to head home, and he sees Jalen Hurts walking. He's like, what's up to Jalen? And Jalen's like, what are you doing? And Shane's like, it's 8 o'clock. I'm going home. Been here for 14 hours. Time to get some sleep for tomorrow. And Shane then went to Jalen's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm going to go ride the bike for another hour. So 8 o'clock, and I know it's cliche, first person in, last person out, but that Jalen Hurts actually lives that philosophy day in and day out. These guys get to the complex on a given day at like 6 a.m. And at 8 o'clock, I'm sure he was in that gym with the team multiple times working out. 8 o'clock, everyone's going home. I would hate to be the security guy at the NovaCare complex. He's got to be the last person there to lock up after the last person leaves. Jalen Hurts never leaves, so you got to stay there till he's done. That just mindset of being everyone's going home. I'm just going to go ride the bike for an extra hour, get a little extra cardio in.
Jalen has Phil's mentality, man. That's why you love him.
No, dude, I wish I had Jalen. I wouldn't be so fat and out of shape if I had Jalen's mentality whatsoever. I enjoy the beer way too much.
We text Phil like 9 o'clock. Yo, Phil, what are you doing? Getting my bike in for an hour.
Dude, you saw it. You saw it. I got an elliptical when I had the other screen up. Here, I'll put the other screen up right there. You can see my elliptical right there. It's collecting dust.
Studying film tape, riding
collecting dust. Can I do my show while I'm riding the elliptical? I don't know. I'll have to try that one day and see how that goes. Do an hour show with me running the entire time. All right, so Sunday, we're talking Hurts, we're talking Lawrence.
Yes, sir.
Both young guys, but obviously Jalen has that running factor to him, and the Eagles' offense is geared running. Look, Hurricane Ian, we've talked about how that's affecting Florida right now. But Sunday, the remnants of that are going to be up here. It's going to be a rainy Sunday up here. It's not going to be a 400-yard passing type offense that we're going to see from either team. Now, I can't say I watch a lot of Trevor Lawrence, guys. I don't know if you have. No. He is not a running quarterback from what I know.
He's like a little mobile, though, no?
He's more of a mobile quarterback than a running quarterback. Okay. Does Jalen Hurts obviously have an advantage now, and the Eagles have an advantage? Because if the weather's really bad, they can just focus in on Miles Sanders and Jalen Hurts. We don't want to see Jalen Hurts running a lot, but is this a week where it's kind of okay if they let him get 12 or 14 carries, Jalen Hurts?
I see like a Saints type of game. Remember last year, the way and it was still like a little, I think it was coming off the rain, and it didn't rain throughout the game, but it was kind of like that ugly type of flowing game. And I do agree with you. Like we could see a little bit more of a focal point of the running game, and that'll really test Jacksonville out as well. And let's not also forget, you still got Kenny Gainwell. Boston Scott is always due for a good game. Maybe we'll save him for New York, as we always do. But I could see the running game being a focal point of this offense, especially if it's ugly out there. And we know it can be. It's like that card that Nick Sirianni's holding in his back pocket, knowing that when he needs to unleash it, it's there and it'll work. But I do think that Jacksonville has two running backs, Robinson and Etienne, that are pretty versatile as well, and they can use them in different ways on Sunday too.
So I don't know if this is official. I'm not fact checking my man Elijah Mendez here. But he says
Elijah.
Defense. Do they have the number one ranked defense rushing the ball? I'm not even.
I can fact check. Yeah, I have NFL.com up right now.
I'm afraid my computer's going to crash again if I open it.
Got you, brother.
So I'm not opening any tabs here. Throughout the show.
I'll let you know when I find it.
But also, the Eagles have a really great. Where's my notes from last night? I mean, you think about it. The Eagles' run defense outside of Week 1 against Detroit, they've only given up 55 yards rushing to starting running backs the last 2 weeks. So even if the Jags have the number one rush defense, the Eagles have a pretty top-end rush defense as well. Jason, what are your thoughts on this rushing attack with Jalen Hurts going up against what's supposedly the Jags, a top-tier rush defense?
I mean, I think Parcero nailed it. I think it's the great card to have in the back pocket. What I love about this team is the versatility overall of the offense. So we already know that we have the best offensive line in the NFL. We already know that we can have and we do have success running the football. But now we've seen the Eagles the last 2 weeks kind of assimilate the passing game and kind of go more towards that, that focus. But to know that you can run the ball kind of whenever you want is a good knowledge to have in your mind as the coach. And I agree. I think the weather can dictate the way that the game goes, but I don't think that weather will stop the passing game to the point where you're just like, oh, well, they're not going to pass the ball. I mean, we don't know how much rain it is going to be. I mean, I'm obviously.
I mean, we might not get any rain. You know what I mean? If you, I love the Weather Channel. I'm fascinated by hurricanes, guys. I mean, they're devastating. I feel for everybody in Florida. But when there's a major hurricane, I am glued to the Weather Channel. I just, Mother Nature, it scares the hell out of me, but it fascinates me at the same time. But after it passes by Florida, I mean, the spaghetti noodle that they show, I mean, it could go in so many different directions that we might not even get any rain from it. But it could also be torrential downpours. We don't know. Sorry, Parcero.
I don't know where Elijah got that stat. I found on NFL.com, and total rush defense, Jacksonville was 18th.
Okay.
So Elijah, if you want to give some clarity, for sure, we'd like to look that up. But it does feel like the Eagles can definitely do some damage on the ground this Sunday, boys.
And I also feel like Jalen Hurts is the type of quarterback, and this Eagles offense is the type of offense, even if they don't want to run the ball, they want to pass, like you said, Jason. You've got a possession receiver now in A.J. Brown that could go and get
screens,
8-yard catches, screen passes. This might be a week you see Quez Watkins get involved in bubble screens, and stuff like that. A quick dump off and let him take his speed upfield.
Tight end screen was working too, Phil.
I'm sorry?
The tight end screen was working too.
The tight end screen. I mean, I don't know if anyone on Washington actually tried to tackle Dallas Goedert on that play.
Show that jersey, Phil. Show that jersey.
Yeah, where is it? Oh, there it is, right there. Yeah, yeah. Cheap knockoff jersey right there. You see who's sitting next to him there, Parcero?
Jimmy Butler.
Oh, Jimmy. What hairstyle was that though?
that was Sixers style, which was what were they called? The headband crew, or the kung fu bands, or whatever they called it.
Man,
and everybody had to wear matching headbands. That was the time right there, man. That was a time to be alive. All right, I want to talk Phillies. I do. But Libby, for like 3 days in a row on this show, has said, please talk hockey.
I got
you. So,
you.
guys, I'm going to change it. I'm going to put the banner up here. I am not prepared for this whatsoever.
What's up with the Flyers? Oh, man.
With the Flyers.
We got some good news yesterday, though, Phil. It doesn't look as bleak. Coots is week to week. It's not. He doesn't need that second surgery, the one that he had 8 months ago. So that's good news, because I think that a lot of us in Flyers land, after the Ryan Ellis saga, we're just a little bit like, all right, well, we're gonna go the same thing with Coots. But week to week is the best news possible.
Wasn't Ellis week to week last year though, for like 75?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. But the fact doesn't need the surgery is very telling, and that's the good news. I think they lost last night to the Caps 2-1. I was watching in the gym a little bit, but yeah, I mean, it to me, it's just like it's a week by week thing with the Flyers. We'll see what happens. I'll say this, guys: if they start off low, that is a good thing, because if you remember the last 2 seasons, they've started off fast, and then we've all seen how those seasons ended. So that could be a good thing.
Jason, where are you with this Flyers team at the start of camp and the start of I mean, I thought the biggest news for Flyers land yesterday wasn't the Coots news, was that Torts was named the 9th best looking coach in the NHL. That broke yesterday. So I don't know where that came. That was the only Flyers news that I was.
That's where we're at right now.
That is where we're at. Is there any chance, Jason, that Torts is turning this team around, changing the culture, changing this locker room whatsoever?
Listen, you know me. I was so frustrated with the Flyers team. I didn't even watch them down the stretch last year. I was very vocal of my opinion. But I'm somewhat the same now with the Flyers as I've become with the Phillies. I'm starting to become numb to the point where my expectations are so tampered that I'm not really expecting anything. What I am expecting, and I will say this, I do think Tortorella is going to have this culture. It will be fixed. I don't think the team is going to be, super relevant. But what I will say is I do think that the Flyers will be better than they were last year. I do think that we will see players that don't show up, or players that don't have any kind of care in the world won't be on the team or won't be playing, because I think, Tortorella will not stand for that. And that's what I like about John Tortorella.
I mean, he pretty much killed a guy already, right?
I'm interested to see. I guess my biggest, and I don't want to say it's a concern, but my biggest, what I'm looking for is how is Carter Hart going to respond after all this it just seems like the poor guy, like he busts his ass, like he's a very good goalie. We all know that in Flowerland. Parcero, you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And it just seems like every year he gets shellacked because of a poor defense in front of him. And I don't think your confidence can only take so much to the point where it kind of just stunts your growth forever. And I just hope that that's not the case with Carter Hart, because he has all the talent in the world. But if your team is not playing well in front of you, it can be a bumpy, ride. And, I just think, like, to me, Carter Hart was the future of this team. And it's like, now I'm concerned because they've just played so poorly defensively in front of him that I'm worried that he won't ever hit where he won't hit his ceiling.
Well, Jason, last week when the last season ended last week, I brought up in the conversation, I'm a little joking there, but I brought up Carter Hart. Should the Flyers even consider trading him because of where they are at an organization where he's at in his development? And it's kind of crazy to even think that you would even fathom that idea, especially when they already traded one young goalie in Bobrovsky, and we all see how that worked out for them, getting rid of that guy. But that's how far this organization had fallen at the end of last season. And to think that now maybe Tortorella's turned the corner with this team. Yeah, they're not going to win a lot of games, but maybe they have a little fight, a little energy, a little fire, something that our Phillies don't have. Maybe that culture change at least brings some energy back into the Wells Fargo Center a little bit.
Yeah, I'll say this. Like I talked about it before on Flyers Talk. The one thing I don't want the Flyers to run into, if you guys remember, the Devils during Marty's end of his tenure, they traded for Corey Schneider. And that was perfect because that was like, okay, so we'll transition from Martin Brodeur to Corey Schneider. And then Martin goes to St. Louis, and then they're bad. And then Corey Schneider is really good, but the team is really bad. And then the Devils are good. Corey Schneider's old, and he's bad. And they just wasted Corey Schneider's prime. That is what I don't want to happen, to waste Carter Hart's prime for a position that we have been dying to see for decades, even before I was even born, right? So that, to me, is the scary part about the situation. What is this Flyers team going to be, right? Like, that's like no one really, really knows. The one thing I'll say this. Every single stop of Tortorella, and it's for don't count Vancouver. Let's not talk about Vancouver. But every single stop, the team incrementally on the ice gets better, but doesn't show in the record because they don't make the playoffs. He has never made the playoffs with any of these teams in the first year. But the next year they're making fourth place or making it into the playoffs. It's a process as well, like kind of like we talked about with Doug P, how he handles his first year. That's how Torts does it. He sets the culture. We've already seen all the pictures of the guy. Torts is talking to the guys on the ice, and the one player's laying on the ice flat on his back.
Killed him.
He literally did that. But it's the culture that's being set right now, and that's exactly what this Flyers team needed. Jason mentioned the defense. When I watched that team a lot over the past 2 years, it wasn't just your first, second, or third pairing defense was terrible. No, it was a team effort that wasn't there. A lot of the times, defense, especially in hockey, it's a 5-man job, not just 2, and they were struggling at that. One thing that I really did like that Mike Yeo implemented in his time when he became the interim coach. He implemented more of possession-based hockey, and that helped alleviate pressure off the defense. We'll see how Torts kind of handles that, but I really just want to see the mentality and the mindset of this team going in next year, because a lot of times, how many times do we see this team give up after being down like 2 goals? Like, I want to see the effort this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of counter, or not counter, but I'll kind of piggyback off what Parcero is saying. I think as a Flyers fan, I'm a realist. I realize they don't have snipers. They don't have any superstar elite talent players. They don't. This team has 0 of that. It's not, it's the opposite of like the Tampa Bay Lightning, who has elite players coming out of the
So might not have centers too, Jason.
I'm sorry?
They also might not have any centers too with these injuries.
Well, no, and so I'm a realist. I get that. But what I will not stand for ever as a fan is to watch a team that is lifeless. So if this team comes out and they hit and they play sound defensive hockey and they give a shit, I'm going to be happy even if they suck. If their record sucks but they have an effort, I'm still going to watch because I love that kind of hockey. But if they put up what they did last year again this year, then I am out. I'm sorry to say. I just will not keep watching a team or an organization that continues to treat its fans the way that the Flyers organization does. Because I think they are so tone deaf to the point that they're just literally just wanting to continually make money and not do anything to better this product. And it sucks for all of us. Because Parcero, I know you're younger, but I know you remember the era of Eric Lindros. Like, that was my era. And like that era was just, they always won. The Flyers, they didn't win a cup, but they were always in the playoffs. And that's what I want to get back to. I want to get back to like
you guys might not realize this because we don't talk. I mean, this 7 or 8 minutes, this is the most hockey talk we've had, I think, ever in the history of Trending in the AM. You guys don't realize this, but
we love
Phillies,
hockey.
Flyers, out of the 5 for 5 Philly teams, I've been to the most games of Philly games because Phillies are my baby. Baseball is my baby.
Yeah.
But most people would be surprised to find out that I've been to more hockey games than Eagles, Sixers, and Union games combined. The Flyers have always been my number 2, at least going to wise. The fact that I don't watch, I don't care. I don't. You could give me a free ticket to a Flyers game right now, and I probably wouldn't go. And I've literally there are times when they've been in the playoffs where I would go to every single playoff game, every single one of them. I would never miss a Flyers game. I would go to 2 or 3 preseason games a year, and I have no desire at this point.
You know what's crazy too, Phil, is that the Flyers are going to find themselves in obscurity in Philadelphia because Eagles are good right now. Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about the Phillies a little bit. We'll see what happens.
You guys have already given me 3 segues to the Phillies and everything.
Union are creating history at the moment for those who do want to watch. And so, and obviously the Sixers have a lot of hype this year, and that's obviously the team that they play with in the Wells Fargo Center and in the season. So for the Flyers, they're going to find themselves, they can sell us all these alumni weekends and all these games like that, Flyers Hall of Fame games, but we don't care about it. And you can sell us gritty all you want as well, too. Like that's been another part of my problem with this team, too. Keep selling us gritty. But what is going to put us, all of us here that's watching and creating the show right now, and all the fans in Philadelphia, it's going to put our butts in those seats is, like Jason said, just effort hockey. Just show hard work in hockey. And then, of course, winning will also bring everyone back into.
Yeah. All right. So we talk lifeless. We talk, putting butts in the seats. We talk all this stuff. Let's get this Flyers thing off here. Let's get the red up on the screen here. The red, the blood.
What's going on with the Phils?
All right. So obviously the Phillies, another crushing blow last night, losing 4-2. Brewers win last night, half a game lead now in the wild card. So, we could talk about the game specifically, but my man, Zach Chavella from Philadelphia Sports Network, great guy. We've had him on the show before. Zach does great work covering Phillies, Sixers. He covers all of it. He put out a tweet last night after the game, and he said, hypothetically speaking, you can only keep 5 Phillies going into next year from their active roster right now. You don't have to keep 5, but you can't keep more than 5 guys, and everybody else gets cut. And I started thinking, who would you pick? And I started thinking, I'm like, are there even 5 guys I'd 110% want to keep?
Would you want to keep the babies?
Like, what's that?
I see. The one thing I start off with is the babies. So, like, obviously, your Bryson Stotts, your Matty V's, your Alec Boehms. Like,
you would, no doubt about it, keep Matt V?
Not Matt V, but I definitely would keep Alec Boehm. I'm on the fence with Bryson Stott. I think I would because there's just a potential, like you just don't know, and I have to.
Can I ask you something, Parcer? Did you watch last night's game?
I watched the first 5 innings, fell asleep, and then I finished.
Me and Jason, we didn't catch it, and I want to know why Bryson Stott was pulled for the game, and you put Matt V at second base, who I don't know if he's ever played there. That they moved Segura to shortstop, hasn't played shortstop at all this year. So either he had to do something super bad, Bryson Stott, or it's just because he's in such a bad slump right now.
I mean, his glove is kind of a liability at shortstop. Like he has a tough time. Look, it's the majors. These guys know how to hit the ball wherever they want to put it, right? And he has a tough time. Like when those balls he needs to stretch out, he just doesn't he just struggles with trying to stretch out at times at that glove. I don't know if that's what it was. If maybe Topper wanted just some security at defense, and obviously, his bat has been okay so far. You really don't know what to expect, but it's a really good point that Zach brings up. And one thing I've always talked about in the past was I really felt like this Phillies team rushed this process. Like 2018, they had an overachieving year, and then boom, we signed Bryce Harper, and it's like, all right, well now we're in contention now. Let's bring in JT. Let's bring in more pieces, and so I think really felt like they kind of rushed this process, and the mentality of the team, it's so weird. Like they just crumble. It's still like this team is clearly better. It's the best iteration of the Phillies since the golden era, right? But yet the mentality hasn't changed. These guys just fold in the crucial moments, and it's just crazy to see, man.
Jason, would it be easy for you to come up with 5 guys to keep? For sure, no doubt. Because right now, I've only got 3 names that I can say 110% I would keep going forward.
I mean, I'll give you my list.
Yeah.
Bryce Harper, Alec Boone, Bryson Stott, Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola. That's it.
Wow. So you would not put JT Realmuto on that list?
No, I think JT Realmuto, I love him, but I think he has the most value, and you could move him and get some pieces that would actually benefit this team long term. I think you're wasting. I got to be honest with you. We're wasting Bryce Harper's prime.
Absolutely.
We are wasting it because we went and we've basically instituted a flawed lineup, which I know I speak about it every time I'm on a show, and I'll continually say it. This lineup is flawed. I could tell you 2 guys right now, and I know that's not what the show is, but 2 guys that are on my radar that I think would absolutely help this team because they're the exact opposite of what the Phillies have, and that's Trey Turner or Xander Bogaerts. One of those 2 guys I think should be on this team next year because they're both not streaky guys. They're both consistent. You look, they hit 300 every year. They steal bases. They play gold glove defense. That's what we need on this team. We don't need another outfielder that can't catch the ball and can't hit it. I'm tired of it. It's just frustrating because, as Parcero said, this team, on paper, this team is the best team we've had. On paper, this team is right there with that golden era, if not better. I mean, you have Bryce Harper.
Roster for sure.
Bryce Harper, who is, a top 10 player in the league. You have JT Realmuto, best catcher in baseball. You have Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola, probably in the top 20 pitchers in the league. So I don't know what else you can do if you look at paper. But as far as how they play and how they play is their mentality, it sucks. There's no leadership. There's not one guy on this team that is coming out and saying, I'm going to take this team on my back. I talked about it yesterday. They lack leadership.
Well, and we talk Flyers and towards the culture that he's trying, or Doug Peterson every time he goes to a new team instituting a culture. This team doesn't have a culture or an identity. You talk about streakiness or whatever. And again, I know, Jason, you say I have a hatred towards Rob Thompson, but it comes down to the culture that he took over a bad culture with Joe Girardi. And it's funny because my Facebook memories strike again. So last year today, I put out on Facebook, is it time to fire Joe Girardi? And they didn't. They kept him all the way through this year, and obviously his culture carried over to this year. Rob Thompson tried to maybe finagle it a little bit, but again, it's not like he's been here for 2 weeks now, Rob Thompson. He's into 105 games he's managed this team now.
It's an impressive job too.
Yeah, it's time for him to, be held accountable for the lack of any kind of identity whatsoever on this team.
What's also with the babysitting of the bullpen pieces acting like we've already made the playoffs too? Like I'm assuming that's from up top, from the front office, but even like 2 nights ago, you put in Connor Brogdon. And you saw what happened. Why are we putting Connor Brogdon in a heated situation like that? And I don't know if that's Topper or if that's just, the front office with their analytics. Oh, well, Connor Brogdon it would have the best chances in this situation, so we should put him in there, Topper. Like, I don't know what it is. And that to me is upsetting as well. Phil, I'm wearing my Chase Utley jersey today because I need to feel something with this team. And this team is not doing it for me.
Look, it's funny. You mentioned the bullpen. I'll go back to how I started this conversation, and that's with last night. I don't know what happened with Bryson Stott, specifically in last night's game. But you are in a playoff hunt. You are trying to lock up this final wild card spot, but you pull Bryson Stott from the game, and you put Matt Vierling at second base. Let's be honest. What kind of message as a manager does that send to your team about wanting to win now? I don't care how bad Bryson Stott's been playing the last couple of weeks. I know he's only had like 2 hits in his last like 10 games. I don't care how bad it is. Are you telling me, defensively speaking, Matt Vierling at second base is better than Bryson Stott at shortstop? I mean, that just to me sends a message that I'm just going to throw whatever up against the wall and see what sticks. And I'm just winging it as I go. Playoff teams don't wing it when they're trying to lock up a playoff spot.
And this is another team. This is yet again another Miami Marlins. This is another Colorado Rockies. This is another Arizona Diamondbacks. We should not be in this type of situation. We lost the season series to the Chicago Cubs. Like, we should not be doing that either.
I just looked it up, Phil. It was analytics. It was analytics. Matt Vierling.
So analytics say that Matt Vierling gives us a better chance at that
lefty righty.
A lefty righty. That's what it was.
Oh my God.
But actually, Bryson Stott, I don't know how he is now after the last 10 games, but before I left for Mexico, he was one of the best left-handed hitters or best hitters against left-handed pitching on our team.
Listen, this is what I'm going to tell you right now. This is what pisses me off about not just the Phillies, but teams in general when it comes to young guys. Okay, either A, you let them play and just let them play.
Yeah.
Or B, send them down to the minors, because this is what they're doing. Now, all of a sudden, you let this kid play all year, pretty much, right? Fight through his struggles. It's what happens. He's young. And now, all of a sudden, because you're going into the playoffs, you're saying, oh, well, he mentally, he can't handle this. We need to take him out. Mm-hmm. No, dude. You already made it known that he's a part of your future and you're letting him play, him and Boom. So let him play. Stop with this nonsense. It sends mixed signals, and it's very, very frustrating, not just as a fan, but I can't imagine how it is as a player. If I'm Bryson Stott, yeah, I'm pissed off because, look, I'm trying my best. At least Bryson Stott looks like he cares. I'll say that. I mean,
Absolutely.
The kid gives a shit. Well, unlike half the team that just stands there like motionless. Like, I was shocked last night to actually see Aaron Nola throw his glove down and go like this.
I was surprised to see that. He's a very emotional.
Usually he never does anything. He doesn't do squat, but he actually had a little bit of a pulse there. It's like, where is that from Bryce Hart? And like I said, dude, I hate to criticize the guy, but sometimes people deserve to be criticized. Bryce Harper is coming up small down this stretch, and we need more from him. We do.
Maybe we should sign Jonathan Papelbon. We know that gets a reaction to Bryce Harper.
I don't know, man. Marcero, that's a good idea. Maybe.
Look, I said it the day we signed Bryce Harper, and I'm going to start questioning it. It didn't happen quite as quickly, but Parcero, you said it. You're speeding up everything when you signed Bryce Harper. The day they signed Bryce Harper, I said yes. I cheered it. Then 30 seconds later, I said, if we're not a winning team by midway through his 4th season, he's going to start grumbling and want out of here because he didn't come here to lose. Now we're through 4+ seasons now with him. It didn't happen quite as quickly, but he still didn't come here to lose. Is there any chance that, obviously Joel Embiid does it, Jalen Hurts does it, your stars have some influence on how an organization works in the offseason? Jalen Hurts brought in A.J. Brown. Bryce Harper has brought in J.T. Realmuto and his people into this city. Is there any chance that Bryce Harper goes to this front office and said, this is what I want again. If we don't get it, I want out. But the problem is, can you even trust him to say who is best for this team at this point?
Well, I think he's going to make a pitch for Jason's guy, Trey Turner. I think that's one guy he's kind of been looking at. But, I mean, I remember last year at the closing press conference, the one thing Bryce Harper iterated was, he wants young players. He wants young dogs. He felt that's what it takes to be a successful team in this league. And, Joe Girardi wasn't doing that, wasn't playing the young kids. And the one thing that we all loved Topper in the beginning was he gave the chances to these young players. And right now, we are hoping that those young players can make some sort of a spark, some sort of a play, kind of like they did like 2 weeks ago in that Miami Marlins series. And it's just unfortunately not happening right now. But I'm curious to see what Bryce does or thinks after the season. Like, Does
How
he?
much of an influence will he have over the managerial discussion in the offseason? Because obviously, Rob Thompson to me,
You think he's
I'm not
out?
I don't think he's out. I think he should be out. My thing on Rob Thompson is he could go and be part of the interview process,
Okay.
but he should not be at the end of the season. We're just extending him for another year or two. He should not be just given the job next year. The Phillies need to bring in 2, 3, 4 other candidates, interview them as well, and see if they could bring something to the table better than what Rob Thompson has. I don't think that's the way it plays out. I think they give Rob Thompson a 2-year extension, so
Okay.
you never really go in as a lame duck, coach. Really, I think they do that, but they shouldn't. But
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interject, but
No.
this is on
You're
my
good.
mind, and you're talking about Rob Thompson, and we're talking about the lack of leadership. So say Bryce Harper does go and make a pitch, and we get another player and another guy that he wants.
Exactly.
Okay, when do you start saying, well, is Bryce Harper a lead? Like, where are the leaders coming from? If that's the problem with this team, if it's the culture and the leadership, is just getting another player as a Band-Aid going to help this team change that mentality? That's what I'm concerned about, and that's what I'm
It's a great question.
Like, when is Bryce going to say in the mirror, like, oh, I need to do a better job, or you could keep getting all these players, that's fine, but we've seen in the past, like, you can't really buy a championship. You could try, you could continue to spend money, but at the end of the day, we have a good roster and we're struggling to get in. And when the Brewers are doing everything in their power to let us get in, it's almost like we're almost backdooring ourselves in, and we're still having a hard time getting in to the playoffs. If we all know that's the problem, that this team lacks leadership, then where's that leadership coming from? Because it sure as hell isn't the manager, in my opinion, because I'll admit, Phil, I've come around. I know I battled you on show. I've gotten red and I had my veins.
I've gotten red.
But I'm at the point now where I'm starting to see that maybe Rob Thompson isn't that much of a leader. Maybe he just was better than Joe Girardi at the time and got this team to buy into his, what he was selling. But I don't know, man. I guess that where do you guys think? I mean,
I'll say this.
Go, Parcell.
I'll say this: the Braves don't win a World Series if they don't have Freddie Freeman, Dansby Swanson, Ozzie Albies, and I'll also say this about the manager position. I think that at this point right now, Topper, if he wants to be back next year, not only needs to make the playoffs, but also needs to win a series. That's how I feel right now, because this is again setting the trend again. No pun intended, but this is setting the trend again, where the Phillies reach September, they reach October, and they crumble, and this is another manager. So I think at that point the Phillies would probably give the axe to Topper. You thank them, but I think that's where they would go to.
I mean, I'm being generous by saying he has to be in the room for the interview, but realistically, deep down inside, I don't even want him being interviewed, because, yeah, I mean, he doesn't do any. I mean, you take away that first 15 games, like everyone's talking about, what was it? He won 61 games in his first 100 or something like that. Whatever. He was the quickest person to 60 plus wins, in Phillies managerial history. But you take away those first 15 games, what's he really been? What's this Phillies team really been? Just a few games over 500, just barely better than average outside of that first initial stretch. And I said it, Jason. And, what have we now lost? 5, 6 straight games against the Cubs? We were on the show, me and you, and I forget who the other person was on the show. It was somebody that's not part of Team DSM anymore. I'm not sure which one of the babies was on the show that morning. And I talked about the Cubs coming out of the All-Star break and getting swept by the Cubs, and how that was going to bite us in the foot at the end of the year, and how we swept the Marlins going into the All-Star break, and then came out of the All-Star break and got swept by the Cubs. And I said that renders that sweep of the Marlins meaningless, because you just set the tone for the second half. And now we hear 2 series left in the season. We've just lost 2 more games to the Cubs. And guess what? Wouldn't those 3 games against the Cubs out of the All-Star break, winning 2 or 3 of them, wouldn't that be making a major difference right now? And that comes on the tone set by the manager.
And And that's fine. If you want the manager to be the sacrificial lamb, I'm okay with that. But that doesn't fix the problem with the players. The common denominator is if you keep firing managers and you still have the same results, it's still the players. The players are the problem too. So how are we fixing that?
But I do think the main problem with the Bills is mental. Like, see the starting pitchers, bullpen pitchers, just collapsing in midst of games. You know, if these bats aren't swinging for the fences, if it's not like a 10-8 game, they're not producing much of it. They can't win those low-scoring games. So a lot of the problems is mental. And typically, a lot of times when you describe mental as being an issue for a team, you always point the finger at the manager or the coach, and that's unfortunately where we're at right now.
You have to have somebody setting the tone and setting the philosophy and setting the energy level. And yeah, I get what you're saying, Jason, and I agree to an extent. If this is the exact same team, who's the best manager in baseball right now? Who would you say is the best manager, guys? Whoever it is, put him on the Phillies right now. Is this team any better? Maybe a little bit, but you know, the players still have to do something. And that comes down to Dave Dombrowski as well, and John Middleton and the guys that they spend their money on as well.
It's like Shaq says, man, players play.
I mean,
coaches
you
coach.
guys think that Castellanos, you know, obviously he was like the number one free agent signing, and he's been very disappointed. We know that. Like, this season's almost like one of those lost seasons where you just say, you chalk it up and say, oh, that was just a career worst year. Or do you think he actually fell off a cliff and forgot how to play baseball? Because I'm mind boggled. Like,
could it be the pressure? Could it be the pressure of, because I mean, he's coming from Cincinnati. I mean, could it be the pressure of Philly?
I brought it up earlier this year, Jason. I don't remember if you agreed or disagreed. It's also the fact that he was brought here to be a DH, and he's played left field. He never really played right field much in his career, and he came here to platoon in left field, platoon at DH, and he's been forced to play every single day in right field. And he hasn't played awful in right field, but let's just be honest, he's not a right fielder.
Yeah,
you know,
and
that puts a little.
He had that play the other day that could have saved the run. Like, you have a better outfielder.
I brought it up before. Maybe possibly being forced to play right field, which is a very hard position to play every single day, put a little bit more stress on his body, stress on his mental aspect, stress on the whole entire process for him this year.
I think it's the mental, because now he every day is playing a position that he doesn't feel comfortable. So now your mind is like, okay, how do I get better at this position? And in the midst of all that, his hitting took a hit, no pun intended, took a hit from it as well. So I that's a really good point. That's one thing I talked about earlier in the year. I haven't thought about that in a while because he's been hurt too, but I do think that could be a real reason why that elbow strain, that UC strain, whatever it was, and Bryce Harper's elbow really took a hit on this team.
It's going to be a problem next year too.
Because let's face it, if we were getting Castellanos' production that he had with the Reds, we'd probably be right there at the play. Like, I think that would be enough right there, just in the tank, to have a couple more wins. Like,
absolutely,
he's been that bad at the plate, and it's almost like we never seem to have all of these guys firing at the same time. Like, JT gets hot for like a month, and Bryce is struggling. Reese gets hot. Well, we used to see Reese hot streaks last a month. Now they last a game. Like, that's the problem. Like, there's no longevity in when they have a good streak. Their bad streaks last like 2 weeks. Yeah. Their good streaks last like 2 days. Like, I don't know.
I'll just end this part of the conversation on this. I never said it. There's only 3 guys I would for sure keep for next year. 110%. Bryce, JT, and Wheeler. That's it. I mean, you can make an argument for a lot of other guys, but they're the only 3 in my mind.
What about Schwarber, though, guys? Schwarber's big, I feel like, this year.
Good, but Schwarber could go if he wanted to go. If not, great. Welcome him back. He just, you know, I wanted to give you 60 seconds for union talk, but you bring up Schwarber here instead. So we're going to talk Schwarber instead. Schwarber or Castellanos? There's a scenario in my head where one of those 2 guys is not on this team next year, because you got a lot of money tied up into 2 guys that play the same position, 2 guys that have to play out of position, 2 guys that have to play out of position in the lineup as well. I don't know. There's a scenario in my head where one of those guys gets traded. This
Schwarber most definitely should not be a leadoff hitter. I think let's get that out of the way right away. This team needs a leadoff hitter. Schwarber is a power hitter that is playing in the leadoff spot because they don't have anybody else that can hit leadoff. He's not a good leadoff hitter. Look at his on-base percentage. It's dropped. Like, his slugging, everything about Schwarber has dropped. He's living off of that June and July swoon that he had. And I like Schwarber, but he's not a leadoff hitter. That's part of the problem. We don't have a leadoff hitter.
Well, gentlemen, also
that would be Trey Turner, right?
Well, gentlemen, also going 2 for 6 with runners in scoring position does not get you any wins as well. That's terrible.
Well, I'm pretty sure I saw a stat from last night's game that the 2nd through 8th inning, the Phillies had runners on base.
They had bases loaded, like I think 2 straight innings. I think if I
and they still weren't able to bring those runs home. So I mean, yeah, there's a lot of problems with the Phillies. All right, we're going to go into overtime here. Parcero, I'm giving you 2 minutes. I want to hear what's going on with the Union here. Give me some Union talk. You get 2 minutes. I'm starting the clock on it. We'll turn it to Union.
Well, right now it's been a time to relax as it's been the international breaks. Everyone's been watching international soccer. I know for my American fans, they're not happy because America looks like dog crap going into the World Cup. But right now with the Union, obviously in the midst of breaking history, they're going to break the goal differential. They're going to record. They're going to break the points record. Everything. They're right now in the running for Supporter Shield, which is awarded to the best team at the end of the regular season. You get a nice little shield, so it's a trophy. So you're definitely going to take that. This upcoming weekend, we're going to be in Charlotte. We're going to be in Bank of America, same place where the Panthers play. It's going to be interesting because Charlotte is still a tough team, especially at home. They get that home field advantage. Before the Union heading into the playoffs, you want to get that tuning in, right? You have 2 games. You got Charlotte and you got Toronto, 2 teams that are out of the playoffs who want to play some spoiler. It's going to be exciting to watch this team as they gear up for the playoffs. They're more likely to have that bye week as well. And so for these last 2 weeks, it's just getting warmed up and getting ready to play. This is a really good team, and this is a team that should absolutely be making all the way to the MLS Cup. The only team
are they still the favorite to make up for last year's unfortunate end to the season?
Right. And I think that LAFC is going to be the other favorite. The problem is with LAFC is that they bought all these star players way too late. So now they have half a season to integrate chemistry within this club, whereas the Union have been playing like a team for the last 3 seasons, and that's what puts the Union as the favorite right now for the MLS Cup. But like you just said, Phil, the only team that's going to beat the Philadelphia Union is the Philadelphia Union, because this team defensively, it's the best. They have the best goalkeeper in the league, and now they have an offense/attack that can score with the best of them. I mean, the records that they've been putting up with goals this year, it's absolutely ridiculous, and we have never had that in Philadelphia. So Philly, you got the Birds, you got the Union. Who are the Phillies? Let's go Philly sports.
All right, we're wrapping up Trending in the AM right there, right here on DSM Media. Again, if you're watching this video on YouTube, make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe button. Even if it's on replay, drop comments. Even if you thought this episode sucked, drop a comment and says, you guys suck. I don't care. It helps build our algorithm. We'd greatly appreciate it. That is Jason Voorhees right there at Mustang3651. We got El Parcero Philly. I am Phil Stifle at Bearded Knowledge. We'll be back tomorrow. Sean Bernard joining us to give us a little Sixers camp talk, and then we'll finish wrapping up our Eagles talk, give our Eagles game predictions, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody have a great day. Again, shout out to everyone in Florida. Hopefully you're starting to dry out today. And again, rest in peace to my man Coolio. Thank you for joining me on this fantastic journey today, people. And go Birds.
Go Birds.